Don't scroll, not yet. Stay right here, in this exact moment. Because something in you already knows that what you are about to receive is not an accident. The part of your mind that has trained itself to expect nothing. The part that has learned to keep moving because stopping feels dangerous. That part is going to tell you to keep going, to dismiss this, to tell yourself it probably isn't for you. Don't listen to that voice today. That voice has already cost you enough. This was not random. You did not stumble here by chance. There is no algorithm in the universe that works without intention behind it. And the intention behind this moment was already in motion long before you opened your eyes this morning. Long before this day placed a single demand on you. You didn't find this. This found you. And there is a difference between those two things that matters more than you know right now. I want you to understand something before we go a single step further. I know what this season has cost you. Not the version of this season you describe when someone asks how you are doing. Not the shortened answer, the safe answer. The one that gets you through the conversation without having to open anything up. I mean, the real season. The one underneath. The one that does not have clean edges or easy language. The one that lives in the space between who you appear to be and who you actually feel like on the inside of a quiet Tuesday morning. That gap. That specific, private, uncrossable feeling gap. I know exactly how wide it has become, and I know exactly how much energy it takes every single day just to stand in the middle of it and keep going. Stay here, because what is ahead of you in the next few minutes was assembled specifically for the version of you that is carrying that. Not the performing version, not the version that has it together, the version that is tired in a way that does not have a name yet. That is the version I am speaking to. That is the version this was made for. Before we go further, if this message is already speaking to something deep inside you, if you feel something stirring in your chest as you listen, your support means everything to this work. There is a link in the description below and pinned in the comments where you can buy me a coffee. It is a small act that carries enormous weight. When you pour into something that pours into you, you open a channel between yourself and the grace that is already moving in your direction. Every contribution, no matter how small, is a declaration that you believe something good is still coming. Check the description and the comments for that link whenever you feel moved. Now, let us continue. I need you to stay until the very end of this, not because the beginning doesn't matter, but because some truths are built in layers, and the deepest one is waiting for you further in. The thing your heart has been circling but hasn't been able to land on yet. It is in the later parts of this, so stay. Stay even when your mind drifts. Come back. The coming back is part of the process. I saw the mornings. The ones where the weight was already there before the day had given you a single reason to put it there. Before the first notification. Before the first conversation. Before the first reminder of everything still unresolved, the weight was already on your chest the moment you woke up. And you lay there for a moment, not moving. Doing the quiet calculation of whether you had enough left to get up and do it again. And then you did. You got up. You did the thing. You carried the day. But I want you to hear this. I saw exactly what it cost you to do that. I did not miss a single morning, not one. I saw the nights as well. The ones that should have been rest but weren't. When the house went quiet and the world outside settled into stillness, that was when the noise inside you got louder. The conversations that replayed without your permission. The questions that had no answers but came back anyway. The weight that somehow pressed harder in the silence than it ever did during the noise of the day. You would turn and turn again, watching the hours dissolve into each other, and the thing you carried would not let you go. Those hours when no one knew you were awake, when no one knew what was moving through you, I was there in every one of them. Not watching from a distance, present right there with you in the dark. I saw the moments when you held yourself together in front of people who needed you to. When your voice stayed steady and your face stayed composed, while something inside you was quietly breaking. When you were the one offering comfort while your own chest was full of things. No one was offering to hold for you. You kept going. No one around you ever had any idea how far apart the face you were wearing and the heart underneath it actually were. I know the kind of smile you gave on those days. Not a false smile, but the kind a person gives when the truth is too complicated to hand to someone else. When you had already tried once or twice to let someone in and felt the conversation shift away before you were finished. When you decided staying quiet was easier than trying again. I understood every one of those silences. I saw every one of those choices. None of them made you less. Not one. I saw the ordinary days that held extraordinary weight. The ones that looked completely normal from the outside. But you were carrying inside them the accumulation of 100 small losses that had never been given a proper place to land. Grief is not always large. It does not always arrive with an announcement. Sometimes it builds in layers so thin and quiet that you don't notice until one unremarkable afternoon, the weight of it all lands on you at once. I was there for all of it. I saw the hopes you didn't speak out loud because speaking them felt too dangerous. The things you had let yourself want quietly and then watched not arrive. Absorbing that disappointment alone, without ceremony, without witness. I saw the relationships that changed without warning or explanation. The people who stepped back without saying why. The connections that once felt permanent slowly becoming something thinner. And the quiet wondering that followed about what you might have done differently, taking on weight that was never yours to carry. I saw all of that. I saw the prayers, not the ones with clean language and finished sentences, the other ones. The ones that came out in fragments at 2 in the morning when you were too undone to arrange them properly. The ones that were more like exhales than words. The ones where you weren't even sure what you were asking for, only that you needed something to shift, something to change, something to break open. Those prayers were heard. Every single syllable of every single one. There was never a moment when they dissolved into empty air. There was never a moment when you were talking and nothing was listening. You were heard every time completely, without a single word being missed. You were never alone in any of those moments, not even in the ones that felt most like solitude, not even in the ones that felt most like abandonment. Especially not in those ones. I know the specific kind of tired you have been carrying. It is not the kind that a good night of sleep repairs. It is not the kind that a quiet weekend resolves. It is the kind that is already present before the day places any demands on you. The kind that lives deeper than the body. In a layer beneath muscle and bone, in the place where your sense of yourself lives. That kind of tired tends to settle into people who have been giving far more than they have been receiving, into people who have been enduring more quietly than anyone around them has been able to see, into people who have been faithful to things that have not yet been faithful back. That tiredness is not weakness. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is honest evidence. Evidence that you have been carrying a great deal, for a long time, without enough rest and without enough resolution. And your endurance has not gone unnoticed, not for a single day. If you feel that this work has poured into your life in some way, and you want to pour something back, there is a link in the description below, and pinned in the first comment, where you can support this by buying a coffee. It does not have to be much. It is never about the size of the offering. It is about the heart behind it. When you give into the work that speaks life back into you, something opens. Generosity is not a transaction. It is a posture. It is the body saying, I believe more is coming, and I am willing to move as though that is true. If you feel led, go to that link. Every offering is seen. Every act of giving is its own kind of prayer. Now let us keep going, because we are only at the beginning of what this moment has for you. Before you were born, before your first breath moved through you, before any human voice ever spoke your name into the air, you were already completely and fully known. Not the way people come to know each other. Slowly, through time and shared experience and conversation, in a way that existed before all of that. Before your story had a beginning here on earth, every page of it was already held, not in outline, not in rough draft. In full, you did not become real when people first noticed you. You did not become valuable when someone first chose to love you. You did not become worthy when a teacher affirmed you, or a friend stayed, or a door opened. Before any of those things happened, before any of them were even possible, the full record of who you are was already known and already loved. I knew you before the womb held you, before time marked a starting point for your life, before any family had language for what you would become, before any wound taught you to be careful about where you placed your trust, before any loss taught you that some things don't stay, before any voice told you that you were too much, or not enough, or somehow incorrectly assembled. Long before any of that reached you, I knew you. And what I knew, I loved, without condition, without reservation, without any waiting to see how you would turn out. That is the foundation beneath everything else. And I need you to feel the weight of this, because everything else is built on it. Your identity did not begin with the people who raised you. Your value was not created by the ways you have been received, accepted, praised, or turned away by the world. The foundation was laid before any of that could touch you. And into that foundation, 3 things were placed with deliberate and permanent intention. The first is depth, a way of experiencing the world that goes further down than most people are comfortable with. You feel things that others seem to move past quickly. You notice what is not being said as clearly as what is. You carry the weight of a room without meaning to, and you feel the emotional undercurrents of people around you before anyone has spoken a word. This has sometimes felt like a disadvantage, like a flaw in the design, as though you were built too open, too porous, too susceptible. But that depth is not an accident. It is architecture. It was placed in you because you were never meant for shallow water. You were made for something that requires more than most people are willing to feel. And the depth in you is what makes that possible. The second is compassion. A way of turning toward people that does not come naturally to everyone. The ability to stay present in someone else's pain without flinching away from the parts that are uncomfortable. You have held space for people who had no one else holding it. You have offered comfort when you yourself were uncomforted. None of that went to waste. None of that compassion disappeared into nothing. It was all seeds planted in soil you haven't seen the harvest of yet. The third is resilience, not the performance of strength, not the refusal to feel, but the real kind. The kind that gets up on the mornings when getting up costs everything. The kind that keeps its heart open even after it has been handled carelessly. That is a rare quality. It is not common. And it was given to you on purpose, for a purpose that is still unfolding. None of what is inside you is accidental. Every part of how you were made was made with intention, and that intention is still moving. It is still working, even now, even here, even in this season that has felt the most still. Now let me tell you what I want you to understand about where you are right now. Think of a river, not a small decorative stream, but a real river, wide and deep and strong. Now imagine that somewhere upstream, a dam was built. Maybe it was built by circumstance, maybe by loss, maybe by the slow accumulation of disappointment. Whatever the reason, the dam went up, and the river, which had been flowing freely, came to what looked like a stop. From the outside, from where someone might look at the surface, it appears still, quiet, almost passive, as though nothing is happening, as though nothing is moving. But underneath the surface of a dammed river, the water does not stop. It gathers, it deepens, it presses. It builds a pressure and a force that did not exist before the dam. And when the dam finally opens, the river that comes through is not the same river that existed before. It carries more. It moves with a power and a depth and an intensity that only the waiting made possible. The river that runs free after a long time of being held back does not trickle, it moves. You are that river. This season that has felt like stillness is not stillness. It is accumulation. It is preparation. It is the dam doing the thing that only the dam can do, deepening what was already there, building the pressure that will carry you forward with a force that a life without this season never could have produced. You cannot see it from where you are standing, but I can see it from where I am standing. And what I see building in you right now is not small. The waiting room is not a punishment. I need you to hear that. I know it has felt like one. I know it has felt like everyone else is being called forward into their next chapter, while your name sits at the bottom of a list that never seems to move. I know the specific ache of watching doors open for other people while yours stays closed. I know what it costs to keep showing up with expectation when expectation keeps being deferred. But the waiting room is not where people are forgotten. The waiting room is where people are prepared. There is an enormous difference between those two things, and the one that is true about you is the second one. Beneath the surface of this quiet season, things are being arranged, things are being aligned, things are being built inside you that simply could not have been built any faster without breaking you in the process. The depth of what is coming requires a depth in you that had to be formed first. And depth cannot be rushed. It cannot be manufactured in comfortable conditions. It can only be grown in the kind of soil you have been in. The soil of uncertainty, the soil of unanswered questions, the soil of faithful, unseen, uncelebrated endurance. That is the only soil that produces what you are going to need for where you are going. And you have been in it. You have been growing in it. Even when it felt like nothing was growing at all. When the silence has felt like abandonment, come back to this. When the waiting has felt like rejection, come back to this. When you have wondered whether you have been forgotten, come back to this. You have not been forgotten, not for a single moment, not for a single breath. Not one detail of what was promised to you has slipped through anyone's fingers. Every single piece of it is still held. Every single piece of it is still in motion. You cannot always see what is moving, but it is moving. Now I want to speak to the thing you almost gave up on. You know what it is. You don't need me to name it. There was a point somewhere in the middle of this season, not at the beginning when you still had the energy to hope clearly, and not right now at this moment, when something has shifted enough for you to be here, but somewhere in the long, grey middle of this season, where you got so tired of hoping for it that you started the quiet work of convincing yourself you didn't really want it anymore. It was a survival strategy. It was the mind protecting the heart from another round of reaching and not arriving. So you folded it. You tucked it quietly away. You told yourself it was fine. that perhaps it simply wasn't meant for you, that perhaps the wanting of it had been the mistake all along. And then you tried to go on without it. I saw you do that, and I need to tell you something about that moment. The desires that are placed inside a person are not decorative. They are not suggestions. They are not cruel reminders of things that cannot be reached. When a longing is placed inside someone, it is because that longing is connected to something real that is intended to come. The desire and the destination belong to each other. They were created together, and the fact that time has passed, the fact that the path has been longer than you expected, the fact that it has cost more than you anticipated, none of that changes the destination. None of that cancels what was placed in you long before you had language for it. Do not bury it. Do not apologize for wanting it. Do not let the length of the wait become your evidence that the answer is no. When the answer is no, you will know. When the answer is no, the desire shifts. It loses its particular shape. It no longer feels like yours. But when the answer is not yet, the desire remains. It stays. It persists. It keeps its specific shape even when you try to set it down. And if you are honest with yourself right now, in this quiet moment, you know it is still there. Still holding its shape, still waiting for you to stop apologizing for it. Still true. Don't bury it. Let me tell you what I see when I look at the version of you that is on the other side of this season. Because I can see it, even if you cannot yet, and I want you to know what is being formed. I see someone who has learned to carry without breaking. Not someone who never bent. Not someone who never cracked. Someone who bent, who cracked, who felt the fractures all the way through, and who kept their heart open anyway. That is not common. That is not ordinary. The people who keep their hearts open after real reasons to close them are the people who carry something forward that the world desperately needs, and you are becoming one of those people in this season. I see the compassion you are going to carry into your future, and I want you to understand how rare it is. Compassion that has been deepened by private suffering is not the same as compassion that has never been tested. When you have carried your own weight in silence, when you have gone through your own long nights of unanswered questions, when you have sat in your own waiting room and wondered if your name would ever be called, you develop an ability to sit with other people in that same place that cannot be taught in any other way. The people who are going to need you have not arrived in your life yet, but they are coming. And when they do, what you have been through in this season is exactly what will allow you to reach them in a way that someone who has not been through it simply cannot. I see the wisdom you are going to offer, not the kind that comes from reading about things, the earned kind, the kind that was pressed into you by real weight over real time. People can feel the difference when someone speaks from a place of having actually walked through something. What you carry out of this season is going to land differently. It is going to reach people in places that other things cannot reach, because it was forged in real fire. I see the strength that is being built in you right now, in this quiet, invisible, unseen season. Strength that was not built in comfortable conditions, and therefore cannot be broken by uncomfortable ones. The kind of strength that does not collapse under pressure because it was formed under pressure. The kind that has already learned what it costs to keep going when keeping going felt impossible, and has done it anyway. That is the kind of strength that holds. That is the kind that others eventually lean on. That is the kind that was being built in you while you thought nothing was happening. Not one thing has been wasted, not one loss, not one night of tears that dissolved into the dark without a witness. Not one prayer that felt like it was going nowhere. Not one moment of endurance that felt invisible. Not one morning where you chose to get up when everything in you wanted to stay down. Every single one of those moments is being held. Every single one of those moments is being woven into something. You do not yet have the vantage point to see the full shape of what is being made. But I do. And what I see is worth the process. What I see has a beauty and a weight and a significance that would not exist if this season had not existed first. There is one more thing I want to give you before we close this moment together. There are people watching this right now who need to know that someone else understands, who need to hear that the weight they have been carrying is real and that the carrying of it matters. If this has spoken to something in you today, if something in here has met something in you that needed to be met, I want to ask you to do one thing. Leave a word in the comments below. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to write a paragraph. A single word is enough. Seen, found, heard, held. Whatever is true for you right now, leave it. Because there is someone else who is going to come to this video on a day when they need it. And they are going to read what you wrote. And it is going to matter to them in a way you cannot predict. Your word in the comments is a gift forward to someone you will never meet, who needs it exactly as much as you needed this today. Please leave it. It matters more than you know. And if this message has found you, if it has spoken to something that needed to be spoken to, I want to invite you to stay in this space. Subscribe to this channel. Not because of a number, not for the sake of an algorithm, but because you deserve to keep returning to something that sees you, something that meets you where you actually are. Something that speaks to the real version of you, not just the version you show the world. New messages are placed here for the people who need them. And if this was for you today, the next one will be for you too. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And then share this with one person in your life who has been carrying something they have not been able to name. You already know who that person is. Send it. That is an act of love. Now here is what I am asking of you. Not forever, not a sweeping, lifelong commitment, just today, just this one day. Before the noise arrives, before the phone fills with everything unresolved, before the world places its first demand on you tomorrow morning, give me the first quiet moment, not a perfectly constructed prayer. Not the right words in the right order. Not any version of yourself that has it together. Just come as you are, with the tiredness still on you, with the question still open, with the weight still present. Bring all of it, because that is where I do my best work. Not in the polished moments, not in the composed ones, in the raw ones, in the honest ones. When you are too tired to perform, when your defenses are finally down, when you are still enough to hear something other than the noise in your own head, that is when the voice that has been speaking to you your whole life, the one underneath all the others, finally has room to reach you. You are not too far gone. You have not missed your moment. The version of you that you have been waiting to become is not on the other side of some impossible transformation. It is on the other side of this season, and this season is not permanent. You are not too late. The door that was prepared for you has not been handed to someone else. The love that holds you has not shifted 1 degree based on how this season has looked, based on how many mornings the weight was there before you opened your eyes, based on how many times you felt like you were holding on with almost nothing left. None of that changed anything. Not one thing. You are held. You were chosen before the world began. Good things were prepared for you before you had a name, and every single one of those things is still in motion, still being arranged, still coming. This moment was not accidental. This message was not random. You were brought here, to this specific thing, at this specific time, by a love that already knew exactly what you needed to hear before you knew you needed to hear it. So carry this with you. Write it somewhere if you need to. On the hard days when the weight comes back and the questions return, and the waiting room feels endless. Come back to this truth. You are seen. You are known. You are deeply, completely, and permanently loved. The one who made you has not taken his eyes off of you. Not for a single second. Not once. Your story is not over. It is not even close to over. The river is still gathering, and when it finally runs, it is going to be unlike anything you can currently imagine. The best pages are still ahead.